The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on the Canna Connect show belong solely to the individuals and do not reflect those of Canna Connect and its affiliates, sponsors, or partners. Canna Connect does not promote or facilitate any activity that violates state or federal regulations. Everything you hear here is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not legal advice, it is not financial guidance, and it's definitely not medical direction. Seriously, don't take our word for it. Even if someone on the mic sounds like they know what they're talking about, and they're probably crazy smart too. Regardless of how legit our guests may be, you should always do your own homework, consult with your attorney, and understand the risk you're taking before you do anything when it comes to cannabis. Our intention is to keep it real. If you've got a problem with anything we've said, take us to court.
Hey everybody, if you're watching this episode and it just dropped, the Lucky Leap After Party is coming up on February 27th, 2026. Canna Connect presents Lucky Leaf After Party at Earl Giles. That's February 27th from 5 to 10 p.m. Tickets are on sale. Get your early bird tickets. Sponsorships are available. Reach out to Canna Connect, and we hope to see you there. This is going to be an event that brings the community together, network, enjoy, have great food. We're bringing Wheat and Wagyu to the center of Northeast Minneapolis. That's Earl Giles. Tickets available on Eventbrite. Welcome back to the Canna Connect show. I'm your host, Stephen Eigenman, and today on the show, I'm joined by Mackenzie Damerow of Hoyt Properties. Mackenzie is a real estate professional, having worked as a real estate agent since she was 18. Today, we're going to dig into her background growing up in the real estate world, where she comes from, just outside of Rochester, our St. Thomas connection, as you can see with my hat, and things to know. Mackenzie was featured in an October Star Tribune article from 2025. That's what caught my attention. And we dig more into that story and the realities as folks are looking for properties and the challenges that they face. There's numerous challenges. And if you think you're prepared, prepare again.
Exactly.
But Mackenzie, so great to have you on the show today. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So, Mackenzie, let's start from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about where you're from and what you do.
Okay, so I am, for the most part, from a small town just outside of Rochester called Byron. It is a farm town, as you had mentioned. It's like our high school is quite literally in a cornfield. But Rochester, as many people know, Mayo Clinic, right? It's massive community, probably the largest community, I would speculate, outside of just the metro area here in Minnesota.
Nice.
And it's growing. It's got major plans to grow. Pretty much all of Highway 14 down there, which turns into our Highway 52, they're anticipating as part of Destination Medical Center is going to turn into really just kind of one large suburb of the Twin Cities.
Okay. And how far is that from actual Mayo Clinic?
Byron or Rochester?
The growth for Destination Medical Center.
Well, DMC starts right at the Mayo Clinic campus in downtown Rochester, and it's already started to, like, phase 1 and 2 or whatever phase they're in. It's already started. But obviously, a community like Byron, where I think 10 miles maybe outside of Rochester, takes 15 minutes to get to downtown.
Sure.
So and Mayo's got a lot of little kind of subsidiary type clinics all around, right? There's clinics up here in the cities that are Mayo related. So they've got a hold everywhere.
Right. And so it sounds like the Mayo Clinic is almost like, or Destination Medical Center is almost like swallowing up some of these neighboring towns, and it's all kind of turning into Mayo Clinic. Or it's not like the limits of Rochester are moving, but the medical industrial industry is evolving.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think, especially when you get a name as large as Mayo Clinic, pretty much wherever they go, they're going to dominate. And the city was pretty much built around Mayo Clinic, or for Mayo Clinic. But so I live just outside of that in Byron. My parents are residential real estate agents.
Okay.
And they have been for the bulk of my life. And they practice, obviously, in the Rochester area, and Byron included. And then I went to college up here in the cities at St. Thomas.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Stephen with Canna Connect. Taking a quick minute to shout out today's sponsor, CEE. That is the Center for Energy and Environment. If you're not familiar with CEE, they're your one-stop shop for all lighting rebates. If you are in XL Energy territory and you're a micro business, CEE is somebody that you need to talk to. Give Brad a call, give Tony a call, go online, one-stop shop, LED lighting rebates. They'll help take care of up to 60% of the costs associated with your grow and your build-out with the lighting. Really nice people, great people to work with, huge sponsors of Canna Connect, and give them a shout. That's CEE, Center for Energy and Environment.
Initially, I did not want to go for real estate or go into real estate in any capacity. I grew up hearing about it every day at the dinner table
Yeah.
and was disgusted by it at a certain point.
Yeah.
I make the joke that I knew what like equity was at 8, and I'm like talking about home loans and things.
Wow.
No,
Which, I mean, it is a kind of complicated, a relatively like simple, like on its face, like a house.
Right.
But there's a lot, it can be very complicated, or there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of ways to get ahead with it. Yeah.
for sure. And ultimately, I thought, I wanted to go into business in some capacity, but I had these big grand plans that I was going to travel the world. And so I thought I was going to do international business and maybe double major, and then realized that was quite ambitious.
Yeah.
So I decided to pivot, and I had my real estate license already at 18 just to kind of partially work to pay my way through school. So I thought, you know what, let me look around, see what types of careers are there. I didn't think I wanted to go into residential. And St. Thomas is one of the few schools in the Midwest that offers a commercial real estate program.
That's right.
Yeah, it's essentially a bona fide finance degree.
Okay.
With obviously a real estate emphasis. But I thought, that seems transferable. I'm likely going to go into some area or arena of sales. So I thought, why not? And then being from a small town where certainly at the time I grew up, commercial in the Rochester and Byron area was not nearly as big as it is now, and certainly is nothing compared to the market up here. I didn't really know. I mean, I assumed it existed, but I didn't really know what that meant.
Okay.
And being exposed to that through the classes at St. Thomas and really understanding all of the different pathways and avenues you can explore as a career in commercial was really exciting. And so I just went the brokerage route as opposed to like development or, appraisal or something like that.
What years were you at St. Thomas?
15 to 18.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my brother was there from 11 to 15. I was there from 07 to 11. So it's cool seeing. I mean, to some degree, it's a certain level of trust. It's a badge. It's like, oh, it's they went through something that I went through. Sure, our experiences were different, our degrees were different, where we lived is different, but ultimately, like, that is part of what you pay for with the education.
The Tommy Network.
Yeah, the Tommy Network, exactly. We had Allison Cole on earlier today, and she's a lawyer with Hush Blackwell, and she didn't do her undergrad at St. Thomas, but she got her law degree there, and that's another.
Yeah.
That came right after we finished right after I finished school. The law school got started, and yeah, I've heard about the commercial real estate program. Where did you start when you got out of school? Because that was the hard thing for me, was like college was a bit of there was a lack of reality happening for me. Part of it might have been the cannabis, but like,
Right.
when you finished and got your degree, like where did you go next?
So I'd had a couple of internships throughout my last 2 years of college, but I was lucky enough that my senior year of college, I interned with the company I'm at now.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And basically, when I started the interview, I just said, hey, I don't know if this is going to be a fit for both of us, right? But assuming it is, I want to know that I have a place here at the end. And
Okay.
it's not just going to be an internship. And they said, let's do it. And so that's kind of where we're at.
And so you're with Hoyt Properties?
Correct.
That's right. And describe Hoyt from an industry perspective.
Yeah. So we're what's considered a boutique firm as opposed to some of the national and international firms like a Colliers and a Cushman and Wakefield.
Yep.
So we operate just here locally in Minnesota, and even more hyper specifically to the metro area. I mean, obviously our license allows us to go in the entire state, but
Okay.
I'd say 99% of our deals are going to be within the 3-ring metro. And then we are even more hyper focused on just industrial as an asset. So we do kind of industrial flex properties. Flex basically just means it is a building that could be comprised of one tenant could be a manufacturing user, one tenant could be an all office insurance user, right? It looks like a lower clear manufacturing type industrial type building, but it could house multiple different types of uses just due to the finish level within the property.
Okay.
Um,
Are offices within or leases within buildings, are they often referred to as suites?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can you own your suite, or is there typically like one building owner and then there's leases happening within?
It's kind of like an apartment, right? If you were to own an apartment, it
Yeah.
would be a condo.
Right. Right.
And same with industrial. There are industrial condos, um, and typically that's a park of industrial condos, right? You don't typically have a bunch of leases and then one person owns one suite, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Typically, it's like this is a series of 6 condos, and maybe people own a couple of them, but
Sure.
everyone kind of owns them.
I see what you mean. Yep. And so, you caught my attention through the October Star Tribune article that came out in 2025.
Mhm.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about the lead up to the article, and then we can dig into kind of what the dilemma is and where the problems lie within the cannabis industry here.
Yeah, so I think how I dipped my toe into this world is, because we are a boutique firm and we are not we're a privately held company, we're not publicly traded. We have the ability legally to do these deals,
Okay.
right? In terms of passing our income through the state. And so in sales, you're always trying to make yourself stand out,
Yeah.
be niche,
Yeah.
have a niche. And so I thought, okay, I'm open to it. I don't know anything about it, but as we started to get, a lot of the users were pounding the phones, making the calls. A lot of the larger shops, not just because they didn't like the use, but because their hands were tied. A lot of them were just like hanging up, not taking the calls, not returning the calls. I thought, I'm going to call them back. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
And so when I started to get into that world, Carol Moss, she's kind of become a figurehead, an attorney
Yeah.
at Helmuth and Jessen as the kind of the cannabis attorney here from Minnesota. And she spoke at a couple panels and we got connected. I can't quite remember how. So her and I started talking about it and throwing groups around. And, sometimes most of the groups actually that would call me were already working with her,
Right.
whether she referred them to me or not.
Sure.
Um,
Friend of the show, by the way.
yeah, good,
Yeah.
good. I expected that of her. And so she and I, like I said, had kind of passed on some clients. I started working with them and found very quickly that there was a lot to learn.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I mean, some of the things that stand out to me are like the building can't have debt on it, depending on depending on what bank owns the debt. If they're tied to the Fed,
Mhm.
then there's like a no-go with cannabis real estate. So then oftentimes the building has to be outright owned.
Mhm. It's yes. I think that's the ideal scenario, just
Right.
because then you don't have to involve anybody else, right? But theoretically, I just say this because I personally haven't worked with them. I've been told there are local banks that allow for it or are willing to work with it.
Okay.
But I think that oftentimes that's not the case, right?
Sure.
So if you do have, even if you have your debt cleared on the building or you have a bank that's willing to work with you, now you have to look at your insurance, your building insurance. Does that allow for it? And if not, you might have to get a different insurance company. Okay, well, now that you have to go through that whole debacle,
Right.
and there's not a lot of non-federally backed insurance companies,
Sure.
right? So
Sure.
it's tough. There's a lot. It, I think, not to jump ahead in your questioning, but
Yeah.
I think honestly the biggest issue in finding space is not so much the social stigma anymore.
Okay.
I mean, it certainly still exists,
Sure.
but it is the way in which these property owners and users have their hands tied with a lot of the governmental
Okay.
obstructions and hurdles.
Yeah. Another thing that, I don't expect you to have this full understanding, but one thing that's been coming up lately is like each market develops different at a different pace
Mhm.
because it's a state by state issue for adult use cannabis legalization and medical cannabis. And so Minnesota, it's glass half full, glass half empty in the sense that like there are some things from a momentum perspective, like we're coming off like a very successful hemp campaign, hemp run.
Mhm.
I think you'll start to see less new hemp products and more new adult use products. But the other thing that's on the horizon is Schedule 3, getting rid of 280E, allowing for more savings on taxes at the end of the year. So there are some things that could hopefully change the regulatory and the limitations around real estate, but we're still in that gray area. We're still in that Schedule 1 drug as we record now. And hopefully cannabis moves to Schedule 3 and there's we continue to see better banking opportunities. Now, those two things aren't tied to each other. We're going to still need Safe Banking Act or something similar to that. But ultimately, more investment into the industry will help all of us inside this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Great.
So the article itself focuses on Brian Bartley and Green Lane Express.
Yes.
Was he a client of yours?
Yes, and that's, I guess, the full circle to your initial question. He was a client referred to me by Carol.
Okay.
And so at that time, I had already been working and running with several groups, but hadn't really had any success yet, but was learning a lot.
Yeah.
And Brian came to me, as does most of them, the ones that I choose to work with at least, very prepared, very eager. But I will say, Brian, for lack of better words, just kind of got lucky. It was a really, I mean, honestly, from start to finish, I think from when he called me to when he was moved in, or not moved in, but executed the lease, was maybe a 6-month process.
Sure.
Which is insane, considering the fact that one of the first groups that I'm still running with today, we've been working together for 3 years and haven't found a space and haven't been able to make it work.
And I was talking to Brian around the same time, unbeknownst to you. And I believe that there was one property that he actually really, really wanted that fell through because he was trying to have a unique drive-through opportunity within Brooklyn Park, is it?
Yeah, that's where he's at now.
He's in Brooklyn Park. But yeah, so it's kind of fun to hear not two sides of the story, but different perspectives, given your focus is real estate and my focus is just more on the community and network as it is, growing it. But what else can you share about kind of the quotes from the article, as well as just the pitfalls or the unfortunate reality that we're dealing with here?
Well, like I kind of alluded to, I think a lot of it is unfortunately out of everybody's control, right? We're talking about a government and a local government and unprecedented times and a naivety to this industry and not really knowing how to navigate it and kind of, in my opinion, fumbling their way through it, right? And I think the adage that comes to mind is time kills deals.
Yes.
And that's not just applicable to this industry, this our industry in general, right?
Yeah.
And I think with how slow things have to move with the government and how slow this whole process has just been from, okay, we're making it legal, but it's not really legal. And okay, now we've got social equity licenses, but that got pushed out, the lottery for that got pushed out 7 times.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. And so I just think one of the largest hurdles, other than the federal restrictions that the loans on the buildings have and the insurance and things that we mentioned, is these landlords are kind of tired of waiting, right? And you're asking them to have faith in the fact that it might work, but we've never seen it really happen. And we're in a landlord's market, right? And it's they're kind of hey, I love the idea, I want to support it, but you're asking me to hold this space when there's 7 other people knocking on my door.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that don't have the risks that you do. And yeah, okay, you might pay more in rent, and you probably will, 30 to 40% rate premiums.
Wow.
But oftentimes that's just not worth the risk, especially if we're talking a local owner here. A lot of them would rather have their buildings full than having the highest payer or the highest rental.
That's reasonable. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's an adage for that too, right? But it's you want money you can count on, not money that's coming soon. Yeah.
Right.
The one I wanted to get your take on this. So we office out of Uptown, West Lake Street, between Hennepin and Lyndale. And if you do a from Franklin to Lake and you go over and around, you could count 8 dispensaries coming soon signs and 1 or 2 that are open.
Right.
I know we focused a lot on the cultivation or the industrial side, but when it comes to dispensaries opening, I'm noticing that a lot of these vacant shops in Uptown are getting filled with dispensaries coming soon signs. I think it could revitalize Uptown. And no other industry. It's not like you're going to see 8 Apple stores pop up in Uptown or 8 Orange Theory fitness centers that pop up in Uptown. So it's what is your take on that from a real estate perspective, seeing a new industry coming online? Yes, there's hurdles. Yes, you've been in the thick of it, but also there will be successes and there will be paying, operators and leases happening. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting, and I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, but a lot of the coming soon signs in the dispensaries, these are retail only, right?
We're talking about the retail side of it.
And being that I've worked almost predominantly with the cultivators, I've heard their frustrations with that,
Yeah.
right? You know, there's all these retail shops, but unless I'm just not understanding how it all works, where are they going to be supplied from?
Absolutely.
Right? So I don't really know how I feel about all of it. I like it in theory,
Mhm.
but I think that's part of the problem
Yep.
because they're getting all of these licenses and these cities are maxing out on all of these retail licenses.
Yep.
But now we don't have anywhere to come in as a cultivator,
Right.
right? And I think too, it just kind of takes one bad egg to ruin it for everybody. And so I actually am a little bit fearful with it because I think people think we're further along in this than we actually are.
Yeah.
And we're glossing over the issues. And if all of these retail stores, which have some of them have been sitting vacant for a year now, don't start making money fast, they're going to be foregoing their payments, right?
Yep.
And then they're going to get sour tastes in the landlord's mouths. And I don't mean to be pessimistic, but
Yeah.
if we assume that it goes well, right?
But no, there's supply chain issues.
Yeah. I mean, if that's not at play, right? I think to answer your question about Uptown, I love the idea about that. I mean, I think Uptown was, at least when I was in college, it was a really cool spot, you know? And I think obviously Minneapolis in general has had a rough go of it in general for the last few years. And so I would love to see it become revitalized and breathe some new air into the city.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's the quiet part. And that's where there's really like an unfair David and Goliath type thing going on where if you equate Green Lane Express as more of like a David, and then the larger companies that are growing cannabis currently, which are predominantly the tribal organizations and the medical marijuana businesses from the duopoly. Yeah, that is ultimately the crux that's holding up this industry, and they're not, the operators aren't the ones to blame.
Right.
It's the regulatory and it's the rulemaking and the agency and everything that happens in St. Paul. But it's a good thing to bring up because yeah, as of now they're just yes, they're dispensaries, but they're still carrying a fair amount of hemp products or
Right.
low dose products, and low dose products are great, but that's not what the bill was for.
Right.
So, no, I hear your opinion, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the unfortunate reality of supply chain and the limitations in getting this market up and running.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think ultimately it's just going to take one or two really good examples of a successful cultivator operating
Sure.
to hopefully change the tides and speed things along and make maybe the landlords that were a little negatively stigmatized towards it open to it. But you know, at a certain point, there's only so much that we can do if
Yeah.
the government doesn't start fixing things.
Yeah, landlords are one thing, but then I guess I do want to ask you a little bit about zoning. Like how have you seen like the requirements or the limitations or like what do you call it? The statutes that are put into place, and
Yeah.
that's at the city and county level. Is that right?
Yeah, some cities are cannabis or not more easy to work with than others,
Okay.
right? Some cities think they, walk on water and don't bring anything untoward onto us,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And it is what it is. It's worked for them, and they've garnered the reputation that they have for a reason, right? But I think as far as zoning goes, as far as I'm concerned, I think almost every deal I've done and that I've heard of, regardless of if they're open to the use or not, is requiring a CUP, which means conditional use permit.
Yeah.
And that is at times a lengthy and difficult process, especially if it's a use like this, where it's unprecedented, kind of uncharted territory.
Right.
Cities can sometimes take 2, 3, 4 months to do that. And that's just to be allowed to do the use, right? Which you're obviously not going to be spending real hard money and signing legal documents like a lease without having your approval to even operate within the site.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a little bit of chicken and egg.
A little bit. I mean, you can sign a lease that's contingent upon successful approval of a CUP, but again, that's asking a landlord to wait when they shouldn't or wouldn't have to somewhere else.
Given the market is, not ripping, but there's like you described. Yeah. Is there anything else folks should know about, obviously if they're living in it as an operator, they're living in it right now, but like for folks that are still looking for real estate and like maybe want to get in touch with you, what are, maybe just some other baseline items, and then also how can folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think your cutting edge, if you want to be successful in this at this stage in the game, is if you think you're prepared, probably go back and prepare more. Like the clients that I've been working with have been working on this for 5+ years.
Right.
So if you're just thinking now, oh, I want to get into this, I don't want to say don't.
Yeah.
But there are so many hidden costs. There are so many moving pieces and team members that you need above and beyond an AI generated business plan.
Of course.
Right. And I don't mean to be crass, but that's really literally what some people are coming to the table with. Right. And that it's great that you've got your social equity license, but that is like one small nugget of the pie, right? Or one small piece of the pie.
Yep.
So come prepared, talk to professionals like Carol, talk to, there are advisory groups out there that can help you kind of piece together all of the parts of the equation. And obviously you feel free to reach out to somebody like myself, but my job and my specialty is not cannabis, right? My job is real estate. And so when it comes to the legality and all of the requirements with the OCM and everything, I don't know that.
Yep.
And frankly, I don't care to.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll
never know it more than Carol.
Yes. Right? Yeah. I mean, calling Carol Moss is never a bad idea. I remember the first time she came to one of our events in 2021. She came with her husband. She was an attorney, but she was not known as a cannabis attorney at that point. And she said, "Carol like Christmas, Moss like Randy," and I'll never forget that.
That's awesome. I say Mac like truck.
Nice.
Perfect. But yeah, you can email me, call me. I'm happy to take the call, and I'm happy to point you in a better direction if I don't think we're where we need to be.
Yeah. And where are you based out of?
We office in St. Louis Park.
Okay.
But I like I said, service the entirety of the metro.
Sure. Amazing. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Short notice. It's good to get this perspective, and ultimately, like cannabis entrepreneurs, it's not easy. And sometimes getting the license is the easiest part. And it's everything after that we're learning is inherently more challenging.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.